Hello friends, welcome to my channel PTE Zone. In this video, I will show you the templates that I used for line chart type of questions in Describe Image section of PTE exam. These templates helped me to score a perfect 90 in speaking section. So before starting, you can have a look at my scorecard. I have scored 86 point overall and in speaking I have scored a perfect 90. I could achieve this score in my 4th attempt. So let's start with the line graph. So I hope every one of you know what line graph looks like. If in case you don't know what line graph is, it looks like this. So in exam you might get a single line graph which has just a single line, or in some scenario you might get a multiple line graph where you will see multiple lines. So it can be 2, 3 or maybe 4, so whatever. So this is fairly simple actually. The important thing about line graph is that you need to figure out what are the most common parameter in all the line graph, because if you know the common parameter or attributes of line graph, you can create a template of your own with the help of these attributes, so that you can use the same template and fit it into any line graph that you get. So what are the common things in line graph? So every line graph will have a starting point. For example, in this scenario, starting point is day 1 and value above 40. Similarly, in this scenario, it would be starting point is for the first line, it's January and above 1. For green line, it's starting from May and above 0. So every line graph will have a starting point. Similarly, it will have an ending value. For example, 6th day and 67th value. It would be increasing. For example, in this scenario you can see the values increasing, or it might be decreasing. Other thing it can be just a zigzag, so it can be oscillating. So these are the common properties any line graph will have, right? So the point is, every line graph will be either increasing, either decreasing, or it might be stable if there is not much oscillation between, right? And every line will have a maximum point. So for example, in this yellow line, 5 is the maximum point, and every line will have a minimum value. So in this scenario the minimum value is just above 3. For example, when I'm talking, let's say I'm talking about red line, I can say the maximum value was 4 and the minimum value was, let's say, 1, right? So these are certain common parameters that you can use. I have also used these common properties to make my template. So I'll show you the template now. Okay, so here's a template that I have made for a line graph which is single. So what I mentioned is the given line chart represents the topic. So whatever topic is there, you just need to say that for the given x-axis. For example, if I take example for let's say I get a question which is this line graph, right? Now whenever I get this question, the first thing I see is what is the heading. So the heading says temperature in New York City, and the x-axis is days and y-axis is, let's say, temperature. It shows, I don't know what it is written, degree in Fahrenheit, I don't know. So just, if I don't understand, I just leave it. So the important thing is that this is a temperature of New York City, and it shows a line graph for different days, 1 to 6 days, right? So what I'll say is the given line chart represents the temperature in New York City for 6 days, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. From an overall perspective, it can be clearly seen that the temperature started with 43 degree in one day, right? Yeah, at 1 day. So you can use this thing, because as I mentioned before that every line graph will have the starting point. So you can mention the same thing, started at whatever value it is, and whatever x-axis, whatever y-axis. Then whereas in between, So let's say I'm talking about if I see this, I can say that this section the value has decreased, right? So what I can say this, that between day 2 and day 3 the temperature decreased. Similarly, there are a lot of increase. So if I can just choose any one of them. For example, I'll say between day 6 and 5 the value increased. So this is how I've made my template. So I'll just read the template, only the template. What I'll say is the given line chart represents the topic for given x-axis. From an overall perspective, it can be clearly seen that the temperature or the whatever topic it is started from whatever value it is, whereas between this any portion and the value increased. Similarly, on the other hand, the same thing experienced the highest increased. I mean, it is up to you. You can, if for example I've used decreased here, this line I can also use between these points the value increased, right? So that's the reason I mentioned on the other hand. So in the first line I'll say it increased, in the next line I'll say it decreased. Then if there are, I want to give any additional information, I can mention in addition the highest value was, let's say, 67, or the minimum value was 43. So you can use this template just by mentioning all these parameters that we have talked about before. For example, the starting point, the ending point, whether it was in which portion it was increasing, in which portion it was decreasing. So this way you can make your own template. So this was my template that I used. You can modify or maybe use as it is. It worked actually. And the important thing is, if you see what I've done in the conclusion, so what I've written is, from the given data it can be easily concluded that temperature for example starting point and ending point, I just make sure if ending point is more than starting point, I will say increased, right? So what I'll say is, from the given data it can be easily concluded that temperature increased throughout the period, right? So you can use this in, so this conclusion you can just remember, you can in whatever line graph you will get, there will always be, it will be either increased, it will be either decreased, or it would have remained stable. So it would be one of these three scenarios. So you can just say this in conclusion, and then you can say, and it is anticipated that similar trend will continue to follow in future also. So now I will show you how I would do it if I get this question in exam. So let's start. The given line chart represents the temperature in New York City for 6 days. From an overall perspective, it can be clearly seen that temperature started with 43 degree in the first day, whereas between second and third day the temperature decreased. On the other hand, from third and fourth day, temperature experienced the highest increase to 57. In addition, from fourth and fifth day, the temperature remained stable. From the given data, it can be easily concluded that temperature increased throughout the period, and it is anticipated that similar trend will continue to follow in future also. So that's it. So because I was telling you guys, so that's why there was a break in between, but in real exam you should not break, so it should be continuous. Even though you are doing even if you miss something, or you know, instead of saying increased you said decreased, don't stop, just in a flow speak. So so I'll just do it in the way I would have done it, right? The given line chart represents the temperature of New York City for 6 days. From an overall perspective, it can be clearly seen that temperature started with value of 43 degree from first day, whereas between second and third day the temperature decreased to 50. On the other hand, between third and fourth day temperature increased to 57. In addition, between fourth and fifth day temperature remained stable. From the given data, it can be easily concluded that temperature increased throughout the period, and it is anticipated that similar trend will continue to follow in future also. So if you speak in this way, you will definitely get a good marks in this type of question. Now I will show you another template which I have made for multiple line. So why this is different is because in the earlier one you had only single line, so I was just talking about that line. Now you have 4 lines, so instead of just talking about, in fact in this type of question also, even in multiple line, you can use the same template that you have in single line, because you can just pick any 2 line and talk about them. But instead it is much easier if you talk about each line individually. So what I would do is that, if you see this yellow line, since the starting point is more than the ending point, so I would say the yellow line decreased in the entire period. For blue line, I would say the line remains fairly stable throughout the period. For, let's say, yellow, for the red line, I would say it oscillated and ended in a low. In green line, I would say it increased to the peak in August and then had a drastic decline till December. So you can just pick up each line and talk about it. So taking out the common parameters, I have created this template. So it reads like this: the given line chart shows the topic between the starting and the ending year. From an overall perspective, it can be clearly seen that line 1, any line, it increased over the period, whereas line 2, whatever it is, increase, decrease, or remain constant during the same time. In contrast, line 1, or let's say line 3, experienced the highest increase in the given heading. Now for the conclusion, you can always say this thing, that with the given data we can easily conclude that all the lines have similar or maybe different trajectories when viewing. For example, in this scenario there was viewers. If in another scenario there would be something else, so you can say when that is concerned. And I always use the same line, same last line, which is, and it is anticipated that similar trend will continue to follow in future as well. So it might not be correct or but this is not wrong. This is my anticipation, right? So whatever from the given data, I'm anticipating this, so I can use this line everywhere in every kind of graph, and it is anticipated a similar trend will continue to follow in future as well, or maybe you can say in future also, or whatever it is. So what I'm trying to do is, if you see my different templates, they're almost similar, so that I don't have to learn a lot of things. So the basic structure is almost similar. I've just modified few things based on the different type of graph. So I'll now show you how I would do this type of question if I get this question in exam. So let's start. The given line chart shows the channel 1 news viewing figure for each month of the year for 4 different timings: 1 p.m., 6 p.m., 9:30 p.m. and 11 p.m. From an overall perspective, it can be clearly seen that 1 p.m. remains stable throughout the period, whereas 6 p.m. declined over the period. In contrast, the 9:30 p.m. oscillated and ended at a lower value. With this data, we can easily conclude that the different times had very drastically different viewers per day, and it is anticipated that similar trend will continue to follow in future also. So you can see I fumbled in between, but I remained calm even though I did some mistake. In fact, out of these 4 lines I just spoke 3 lines, but I think in the 42nd, whatever I spoke, it was fine. I was fluent and my pronunciation was okay. So if you speak in this way, you will definitely get a good marks in this section. So the key is that you need to just keep on speaking. You're not supposed to be perfect in whatever you say. So it is just an exam that is checking your English, so you have to show them that you are fluent, and from an overall perspective you are able to understand what figure is shown to you, right? So don't worry too much about this question. Learn these templates. Don't waste too much of time in practicing this. Learn the template and just learn how to insert any type of question in the template that you have learned, right? So I hope you would have got the idea to tackle this type of question. So now what's next? Once you now since you have got this template, learn these templates by heart, apply these templates on different type of questions, and when you are practicing, just keep track of time and the number of words you are speaking, right? You can use dictation.io that I have mentioned in my previous videos, and you can count the number that you are speaking. Try to make sure that you speak at least 80 words in the given 38 to 40 seconds. In fact, if you use these template that I have mentioned, you would be able to speak more than 100 words. And yes, uh, don't keep on speaking. Try to finish it in 38 seconds. So that's the reason why I always use the last line of conclusion that I have remembered, which is, and it is anticipated that similar trend will continue to follow in future also. So whenever I reach 35 second, I just conclude. I just end my sentence and just add my concluding sentence, right? So you can also do this thing, because if you, let's say, if you reach 35 seconds and then you start thinking what would be the conclusion you are going to speak, it might you might not be able to complete at that time. So that's the reason why keep the last line as something that you know that you can finish in this much of time. The idea is you don't exceed 40 seconds, because then if you exceed that in the 40-second whatever you said, the complete sentence will be cut. So it's you should make sure that you complete in 38 seconds or 39 seconds, right? That's it from my side. I hope this would be helpful. I would also share more videos and more templates soon. That's it. Feel free to ask question, right? You can always mail me at connect.pte@gmail.com. All the best. If you like this video, do subscribe, comment, like, share. It will motivate me to make more videos. Thank you.